In my story, I discovered the cold truth of betrayal. I thought I knew her, every curve of her smile, every beat of her heart, but in that dimly lit room, I realized I was living a lie. My wife, the woman I trusted with my soul, was in the arms of another. The earring I found on the floor wasn't hers. It was a cold reminder that everything we built was a facade. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. Now as I stand in the rain, watching the storm that mirrors the chaos inside me, I wonder, how did we get here, and more importantly, how do I get out? Let's formally listen to today's story of infidelity. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for your support. I thought I knew her, every curve of her smile, every beat of her heart. But that night, in that dimly lit room, I realized I was living a lie. My wife, the woman I trusted with my soul, was in the arms of another. The earring I found on the floor wasn't hers. It was a cold reminder that everything we built was a facade. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. Now as I stand here in the rain, watching the storm that mirrors the chaos inside me, I wonder, how did we get here, and more importantly, how do I get out? U-turn. Mr. Pandithan looked up at the beautiful woman who had just spoken, a small smile on his face. She had the right tone in her voice. He found it hard to come up with a clever reply because she had a way of making him speechless. He focused on the chessboard in front of him. They had been playing for a little over 15 minutes, and he was really enjoying the game. He had played chess for most of his life. His grandfather had taught him when he was a child. It was a way for them to take a break from everything else. He felt sure he was going to win, but she had just made a clever move that surprised him. Now he was trying to figure out if it changed the game or if it was just a trick. Good move. Big trick. But I think it's just a distraction. I believe I can win in 3 moves. He moved his piece and looked up at her. She was focused on the board, looking for her next move. Her last action was smart, but as he studied her face, he could tell she was struggling to find a solution. A loose strand of hair fell into her face and she gently tucked it behind her ear. It was a simple action, but it caught his eye. Suddenly a splash came from the other side of the pool, followed by laughter. The noise broke her concentration, and she turned to see what was happening. It was his wife who had unexpectedly jumped into the cool pool water. The pool was outside and warmed by the sun. Ethan had already enjoyed a swim earlier, relishing the fresh water, though he preferred peaceful swimming over playful splashes. He looked back at Beatrice and she was still watching him. I get it. You were right. I didn't see it at first, but now that you pointed it out, I realized that pawn is my trouble. Ethan reached across the board and she shook his hand. Ethan shook her hand firmly, enjoying the warm feel of her skin. Best of 3, she suggested. He smiled and began to set up the game pieces. Are you sure you don't want to swim or hang out with the others? He asked while arranging the pieces. Wouldn't leave you to enjoy the quiet. She replied, I brought a book. She laughed. You came to a place like this and brought a book. He nodded. Honestly, I didn't really want to come. This kind of gathering isn't really for me. She chuckled as she finished setting up her pieces and made the first move. The early moves went quickly and she leaned back to think about her next step. That's an interesting start. It's called the curated defense. I don't know chess moves by name, but I've seen that before. It's not one I usually use. I noticed you like a more aggressive approach. She laughed again. That's a weakness in my game. I usually do better with the white pieces because I can start strong. Good luck. I play better with black, since I tend to hold back more. She made her move and he quickly responded, effectively blocking her advance. He could easily guess what she would do next. Is that your style, just to defend? He paused for a moment, sipping his cold soda. I'm a cautious person. Yes, people often worry more about what they might lose than what they could gain. And I get that of myself and others. I like to keep things straightforward. Like a guy? She asked playfully. He returned the eye. We all see ourselves as the heroes of our own stories. Right. He shook his head. I'm not a good guy. I know that and accept it. I try to be the best person I can be in my situation. But I'm no hero. What about you? Do you think you're a good person? He wanted to take the spotlight off himself and put it on her. The smile on her face showed him that she was interested in his question. I wish I could be a good person. I really do. It's just that life doesn't seem to want that. For me, that sounds like a story I want to hear again. She let out a soft laugh that made him feel good inside. You never know. My story isn't the kind that's easily shared. A bit tricky at times. She nodded and glanced down for a moment. Then she changed the topic away from his question. They played in silence for a few minutes. Laughter bubbled up from the other side of the pool. He saw a game happening. His wife was sitting on their host's shoulders while he waded through the water. There was a ball involved and the other couples were doing the same, with the wives balanced on their husband's shoulders. Only he and the host's companion were different. They were playing chess together. We can play that if you want, she said softly. If you want to join them instead of sitting here with me, go ahead. But even if I weren't playing chess, I wouldn't join that. What about the book you bought? He looked at her and smiled. I see what you're trying to do and I admire your strategy. This made her smile even wider. Am I that obvious? Not really. But your strategy is pretty easy to spot. He moved his knight there. I've ended its suffering. She shook her head. His move had messed up her plan. Next time I'll bring a better game and see if it works out, she said loud enough for him to hear. Ethan laughed. B8 rest. Don't let anyone know what you're thinking. That could be surprising. But I doubt your friend would like how far you go to win. She shook her head, still focused on the game. He's my date, not my friend. So sorry, Ethan said. I wasn't sure what you two were. No problem. He seems nice, but he doesn't look that interested. In what way? Ethan asked, moving a piece on the board but stopping to distract her from his question. I feel like he wants to keep his options open. Maybe it's because he's from France, but he just doesn't seem very involved. Ethan glanced up at her. He's not really French. His family is from southern France, but he's fully American. The accent is a bit much. Really? Bella seemed surprised. I wouldn't have guessed. I'm sorry. I thought you two were together. Aren't you? It looked like she realized she had shared too much, Ethan noted. As he watched her expression change, he raised a hand. Bella, I'm being nosy. Let's just focus on the game. I hope I haven't made you uncomfortable. She smiled at him gratefully and they played in silence for a few minutes. She had the advantage, but he felt good about how things were going. She was pushing him to think more. Tell me about you, Ethan. What do you do for work? She asked. While he focused on the board, he looked up with a teasing smile. Don't ask me about my job. Okay. Why is it a secret? She had a playful sparkle in her eye that made him smile back. He returned her grin and said, I'm a consultant. I help small businesses. Oh, that sounds interesting. He studied her for a moment, holding her gaze. After a few seconds, she burst into laughter. Okay. I was being nice. That sounds kind of boring. He chuckled at her. Honesty it can be. But I enjoy the variety and I like meeting different people. Sometimes I can really help them and that feels great. What kinds of businesses do you work with and what do you help them with? Well, let me think. He paused for a moment. I have a couple of Turkish barbers, to taxi companies and a few small shops like laundromats and vending machine businesses. That sounds like a cash-based economy, she said quickly. He smiled at her response and shrugged, turning his focus back to the game they were playing. He made his move leaning back as the game was nearing its end. He had set up an interesting chance for her, but there was a little trick if she paid attention. Small businesses often face challenges and they need support. What can I say? I try to help. I take a small part of their business and invest in it. That's how I earn my pay and then I assist them with their issues. He noticed her looking thoughtful as she considered his words. What about your wife? What does she do? Ethan smiled a bit as he replied, she's here this weekend with her boss. He's our host. What does he do? He never really said. He owns a family business. He's a lawyer. You know how people say lawyers can be quite good at making money. Well, he's a wealthy man. She looked at him firmly. Not a fan of lawyers. I guess he shrugged, a smile still on his face. Behind every great success there's often a story. Bella is a successful lawyer who helps with business deals. She has just started her job as a partner at the firm. She seems comfortable around him. Doesn't she? Someone said. Given how new she is in their different roles, she does seem quite relaxed. Another replied. Bella noticed the meaning behind the comment and felt a little embarrassed. Ethan kept looking at her with a small smile, while Beatrice quickly turned her attention back to the game board. She made a move and Ethan reacted with a groan. As he completed the turn, it was clear she was flustered and didn't think through her next move. That was a mistake, he said softly after he made a move she didn't see coming. She showed her disappointment by knocking her king over. That's not fair. Yet, that's 2 wins for me. A lesson for you, if you want to learn, he said, taking a sip of his drink. What's the lesson? Bella asked, suggesting they play again. He declined. Know the rules of the game. You're playing sometimes. You think you're in one situation, but you're really in another. A splash from the far side of the pool interrupted them, followed by laughter. They turned to see his wife come up from the water after slipping in unexpectedly later that evening. They sat down for dinner at the tables of 4. Ethan found himself sitting across from his wife, with Beatrice and Damien Claude, their host, next to him. I didn't know you played chess, Ethan, Jean-Claude said. As they got comfortable at the table, Ethan didn't glance at Beatrice, but he could picture her smiling as the older man spoke. Ethan nodded with a smile. My grandfather taught me when I was younger. He loved the game. Do you play? Damien Claude chuckled. Not really. I know how the pieces move, but I don't enjoy playing games. It's an interesting game. I saw you reading after your game. Was it a good book? I'm reading the Game of Thrones series again. Have you read them? No, I'm not much of a reader. I'm usually too busy. When I have free time, I like to relax. I saw the series on TV. The scenes with the dragons were amazing. Ethan nodded. The books tell a very different story. The show did a good job, but I prefer the deeper world the books create. Damien Claude looked at him for a moment. I tried reading one, but it was hard for me. They're pretty thick. It's about a fight for power between rich families. Right. Yeah. It's loosely based on the English War of the Roses. The books are detailed and you really need to have focus to catch everything. I like that. It's rewarding. When you do, you're a consultant. Right. Running a small business. Ethan nodded. I'm lucky my little company is doing well. We have a good name in the market, a steady income and ongoing projects. Laura told me you have a small house in the suburbs and are thinking about starting a family soon. Ethan glanced at his wife who was listening in. We're lucky. Very lucky. I make a nice living, doing what I love. We have a comfortable life and things are getting better. No complaints here. I've always thought we had a strong marriage, a happy life together. Family is important to you. Ethan took a moment to think before answering. My parents have passed away. I didn't have any siblings. I was raised by my grandparents, mostly by my grandfather. Because my grandmother wasn't as involved, he opened a bottle of red wine from the table without checking the label and filled glasses for all of them. Then he poured himself a glass of water and took a sip, surprised that no one noticed. Family means a lot to me. When my grandfather passed away, I felt really alone. I had to grow up fast. The world was confusing. I was just 16 and had to make many choices. It was a tough time. You seem to have gotten through it well, Damien Claude said, looking at him over his glass. I did what I had to do. I learned fast and adjusted it by. Ethan replied with a shrug. I survived and did my best. I feel fortunate. You don't have anyone. No family? Beatrix asked. Ethan smiled at her. I have my wife. He pointed to her with his glass before taking a sip. We can create a family together. I'm excited about it. I think I would be a good father. My friend, you need financial security to create a solid family. Damien Claude pointed out it's crucial, especially when children come along. I agree with you, Jean-Claude. Laura added, having enough savings before children arrive is important. I don't want to stress about money while raising our kids exactly. That's not a way to live. You should have a good amount saved. It's said that the main issues often led to disagreements in a relationship, money and priorities. If you can resolve one of those, the future will be easier. If you can resolve both, you are very lucky. He leaned back, satisfied with the advice he had shared. I think you're right, Jean-Claude. Before starting a family, financial stability really matters. If something were to happen to me, I want to be sure that my loved ones will have what they need for a good future. That's good to hear. Ethan, I was on the first. Do you have financial security set up? Not just yet, but it's on the way. Everything is coming together. The plan is in motion. I just need to be patient and careful. Later we can discuss this more. I have a few ideas to help improve your financial situation. Ethan noticed the quick look exchanged between Jean-Claude and Laura, and he saw her nod in agreement. I'd be foolish not to listen to your ideas. What do you do, Jean-Claude? A small smile appeared on Damien Claude's face. I'm the senior partner. I represent my family on the board. I handle some cases, but mostly I ensure the company is well managed for the future. It's a family business, right? Ethan asked, taking a sip of his drink. Yes, I am the 5th generation to be the senior partner. All from my family. The company is very important for our family's well-being. Do you have children, Jean-Claude? Not yet, Ethan. I hope to one day. Ethan glanced at Beatrix and noticed a surprised look on her face. She quickly hid it and he gave her a small wink. The only one who saw it. Any nieces or nephews? He asked. Damien Claude shook his head briefly. Wow, so what will happen to the company in the future? Ethan asked, feeling a kick from his wife, which surprised him. Oh, he said. Not expecting it. He noticed Jean-Claude and Beatrix looking at them. My wife thinks my question was a bit too direct, he explained. Trying to keep a straight face, he noticed Isabella's annoyed expression. That question may have been a little out of place, Damien Claude remarked. Ethan shrugged. He didn't think it was wrong to ask. He turned to Beatrix. You've been pretty quiet. Can you tell us a bit about yourself? Beatrix seemed a little nervous about being asked to speak. I'm a student. I study business at State University and I'm in my 3rd year. What do you like about your studies? Ethan asked, smiling at her. I enjoy the subjects. It's interesting to learn how money works and what people will do to earn and keep it. Ethan raised his eyebrows, surprised by her answer. What do you mean by that? I mean that some people will go to great lengths for money. They might change their values or even do things that aren't right just to get it. Ethan couldn't help but chuckle at her insight, but quickly turned it into a cough. He was handed a glass of water by a slightly amused Beatrix. Thank you, he said, taking a sip. That was nice. He noticed a look of annoyance on his wife's face. She didn't seem happy about how he was talking with Beatrix. Do you know what you want to do when you finish school? Bella shook her head. Not really. I guess you could say that's how my life has been. I've tried a few things, but I haven't found my path yet. Take your time. Think about what matters most to you and then move towards it. Don't let anything distract you. Know what you care about and go after it. A quiet feeling filled the table after Ethan's words. What about you? What's your next step? Bella asked, bringing the focus back to Ethan. He paused for a moment, sipping his water. I want to have a family. It doesn't need to look like everyone else's. I believe love, respect and kindness should be the core of our lives together. Do you want a big family? He laughed lightly. Not really, no. It's not just about how much. Be trick. Even if you hear that sometimes. Bella nodded, feeling connected to his words. I didn't have a very close family. I had parents and siblings, but we don't share a strong bond. What you said really touches me exactly. I think we should start our own family within the next year here. I need some time to finish up work and sort out my business. After that, I'll be ready to focus on us. Bella smiled brightly at him and he smiled back. She raised her glass to bright futures. So family plans for me and my partner. Study and travel for you. Bella, Damien CLA. I guess you're working on your plans for the future too. We all have different goals to chase and maybe a chance to help each other along the way. Damien Claude added softly as he took a sip from his glass. Ethan thought for a moment. Jean-Claude, I believe if there's an important talk to have, it might be better to wait until after dessert. We want to keep the evening enjoyable. The concern on their host's face changed to a smile. That sounds like a great idea. Appetizers arrived at their table. Ethan looked at his plate. Crap. That's an interesting choice. Your wife picked the meals for you. He raised an eyebrow at his wife. Interesting choice. He poked at the crab and after a little while picked up the small hammer and tapped it gently against the shell. Had you eaten crab like this before? Ethan Jean-Claude asked. Yes. I have. But not like this. I usually don't have to break it apart myself. Someone else has done that for me. He tapped the hammer again, but it bounced off the shell. He heard a soft laugh from Betrick and saw his wife looking at him disapprovingly. He shrugged and put the hammer away, happy to let Damien Claude think he wasn't very clever. Sometimes being underestimated is a good thing. He looked around and saw the others enjoying their appetizers, so he decided to start. On his salad, he picked up a bread roll, tore it in half and began to spread some butter on it. You break the claws with this, Damien Claude said, handing Ethan a special tool. Do you want me to help? I can also ask the chef to do it. No, it's fine. The salad is good for me. I'm not a kid. I don't need my food cut up. It's a good lesson for next time. Right. Just get the stuff in a can. I know it costs a little more, but at least you can eat it before it gets cold. He concentrated on buttering his roll, trying not to pay attention to the others at his table. It was hard to hold back a laugh because he found it funny to lightly tease the older man. He thought he might as well enjoy himself. He poured himself a glass of water and waited patiently while they finished their appetizers. Did you know? He started as they cleared the dishes, noticing the server looked curiously at Damien Claude, who just shrugged that crabs are like big sea spiders. That's true, he added. People don't eat spiders, but they do like crabs. Bella chimed in. You say that, but a couple of years ago I visited some business contacts down south and they served something surprising. It was a little different. Maybe I heard they're a special treat. Ethan chuckled. Special treat or a test for visitors. It's the same as some cultures cooking whole sheep heads or other unique meals. I'm not sure if they're a treat or just challenging those who maybe should have researched more before visiting. Not everyone is great at that. Seems simple, doesn't it? Are you ready for your trip? It's good to know what to expect. Some people actually like surprises, things that catch them off guard. She replied. Ethan chuckled. They can enjoy the crab. Then both of them laughed, but Ethan noticed his wife and Damie and didn't seem as amused. There was a slight annoyance on their faces. I'm sorry if I sounded rude, he said quickly. Crab is a big part of the region in France I come from. It's one of my favorite dishes. Damien Claude said, his tone a bit disapproving. I didn't know you're from France. Where were you born? Ethan asked, trying not to laugh. My family is from Beats. We still have a place there. That was a fishing town. Right. I've heard it's beautiful now, with lots of visitors. The food is supposed to be amazing. There you've been, Damien. Claude's surprise was clear and the other men at the table looked over at them. No, but I'm planning to go once my work settles down. I've read so much about it and the history is really interesting. Ethan noticed a smile returning to Damien Claude's face. I feel at home there. I'm content America, but my heart belongs to a beautiful castle not far from here. For the main course they enjoyed well-cooked steak. Ethan liked the food and the conversation. He sipped his water slowly and made a few light comments when he could. Overall, he was in a good mood, ready to enjoy the evening. As he thought about what might come next, for dessert they had creme brulee, which was light and delicious. The caramel on top cracked satisfied you when he tapped it with his spoon, and the taste was a lovely blend of vanilla and sweet sugar. When the meal was finished and the plates were cleared, Jean-Claude raised a finger to get everyone's attention at the table. Ethan, Laura, listen the first side. Laura, I have a proposal for you. Ethan looked at his wife and saw her intrigued expression. As Jean-Claude spoke, he kept his face neutral and declined to drink, wanting to remain alert. He felt satisfied that Jean-Claude was serious about what he was saying. I think our goals are similar and we can help each other. Ethan nodded, encouraging him to go on. He noticed Beatrix smirking and took a deep breath. Ethan, I need to be honest with you, can you run their false pretenses? What do you mean? Ethan asked, pretending to be surprised. This isn't a corporate retreat. It's something else entirely. Ethan stayed silent, sipping his water while listening closely. You and your wonderful wife have dreams that need financial support. You want to build a future with possibilities, including starting a family and finding a home that matches your vision. That's true. But I think I can manage that. Laura jumped in, clearly wanting to add her thoughts. Ethan, we have a good life. But look around. Why should we live as we do when we can aspire for more? Our house is nice, but this place is amazing. Why shouldn't we aim for a life like this? I appreciate our life. Curse. I'm proud of what we've built together, not just a nice house, but a real home. That means something. No, Ethan. This place is bigger and more luxurious than we'll ever have. But we've created a home full of love, happiness, laughter, and a promise to grow together. That's worth much more than just a big building. He felt a distance between them and knew it was there. He wanted to try to close that gap, even if it seemed hard, because their shared past matter. Don't rush into a decision just for a dream that may not come true. It's just an idea, Laura, not something real. But we can make this happen. We will. But you need to be patient and believe in our path instead of chasing after dreams that can fade away. He saw the frustration on his wife's face, and in her movements he leaned back in his chair. Mr. Ethan, have you seen the movie Instant Proposal? Yes, I have. I'm not sure if it's a well-known story or just ordinary. But honestly, I didn't expect to be reminded of it in this way. My friend, sometimes luck is on your side. I have an idea that can help you reach your dreams. I want to offer some help to make this weekend amazing for both of you. Ethan quickly looked around the saw Beatrix covering a smile with her hand, surprised yet clearly entertained by what was happening. His wife looked taken aback by Jean-Claude's words, and the man nodded in understanding. Sorry, did you really just say what I think you did? Ethan asked. Jean-Claude raised an eyebrow. I think I've made myself clear, $250,000 for you to spend time with your wife this weekend. We'll leave so you can enjoy my home without interruptions. I'll bring her back on Monday morning and the money will be in your accounts. No, Ethan replied firmly. As he took a sip of his water, he noticed his wife looking at Jean-Claude. Ethan, think about how much this could help you. Think about what you could do with this money and how it could help you speed up your plans. Thank you, Jean-Claude. I appreciate your suggestion. Really, I do. But I have to say no. Honey, Laura replied. I think we should consider it a little more before making a decision. Ethan's tone was serious, as he said, Laura, you're my wife and I care about you. But please don't take someone else's side against me again. Jean-Claude, sitting back in his chair, took a sip from his glass, swirling the drink thoughtfully. Ethan, I work in a major law firm focused on business deals. He explained, I deal with contracts worth millions of dollars. This isn't a personal matter, and I'm not trying to offend anyone. It's just a business offer. Beatrice leaned in closer. Ethan, don't let him bother. You remember this is a business discussion and not something personal. I'm just not comfortable with it. Ethan said, I appreciate the offer, but I value our relationship and the time we spend together. Feeling reassured, Ethan turned back to Jean-Claude, his voice steady. Jean-Claude, my wife's time isn't something to trade or negotiate, Ethan. I really want to go through with this, Laura said quietly, but she spoke clearly enough for everyone to hear. It's my choice and it carries a lot of weight. For me, this is a big chance that won't cost us much. It would be a mistake to let it go. I don't think this is right. It feels harmful to our marriage and goes against what we believe in. The money doesn't matter. Your loyalty is more important to me than any amount of money. That's just your pride talking. You've let what others think guide you. Nothing will change after tonight and the next few nights. We've been apart longer before. When you traveled last year, it will feel different this time. It's hard to forget a sense of betrayal. It seems like you're choosing to go a different way instead of staying true to our bond. It feels like my commitment's less to you. Now my choices won't change how I feel about you. After I come back, we can focus on starting a family. This chance could help us reach our dreams. Why can't you see that? Ethan shook his head. You may have good intentions, but for me, the trust will be broken. The respect is already fading. If you move forward with this, our marriage will be over. We won't have a future together. Carol looked shocked at what he said. I understand you're upset, Ethan, but it's unfair to threaten our friendship over something you think is small. You should rethink how you see this. It's not as big as you think. It's how I feel. I need to make sure she understands how serious this is. I care about her, but I can't ignore what might happen. She's not leaving with him. I honestly think she might. That's not true, Ethan. They just want to avoid any trouble. Ethan scoffed lightly. I bet anything that by the time we get back they'll be gone. Bella looked uncertain. Okay, fine. I'll take that bet. He held out his hand and she shook it firmly there. Does that make you feel better? She asked with a smirk. Absolutely. I'll be $1 richer and ready to say I told you so. But really, how does it feel to be treated like this? Bella laughed. One of the few honest things I've said since I got here is that I feel lucky in this situation. And I really meant it. The more he talked, the less I trusted him. I'm not a good person either. Betrayed. I'm the kind of guy you should be careful around you. Don't give yourself enough credit, Ethan. He's not trustworthy. Plain and simple. You may have your issues, but you have more honesty in you than he does in all his actions. Thanks. But if you really near me, I don't think you feel that way. Well, if things go as planned, I'll have a couple of days to learn more about you. I can think of worse ways to spend my time. Ethan chuckled. At least your chess game should get better. Laura told him that phones wouldn't be welcomed at the retreat, so he left it in the car. When they got there, he was glad to help his wife with her plans for the weekend and didn't think that not having his phone would matter much. He walked to the pool, stretched and jumped in, enjoying the cool water. He swam for nearly an hour, not counting how many laps he did, but just enjoying the exercise and the refreshing feeling of being in the water. Swimming had always been something he loved. After he finished, he walked to the garden facing the rising sun. He draped his towel over the nearby handrail and made sure he had some space around him. Taking a deep breath, he started his morning Tai-Chi routine, moving slowly and carefully through the familiar poses. He concentrated on his movements, the sounds around him, and how his body felt, letting go of distracting thoughts and focusing on the moment he finished the full routine, feeling the warmth of the morning sun on his skin. When he was done, he paused for a moment before slowly walking to get his towel. He wrapped it around his shoulders and walked back along the side of the pool. Isabella was on the porch waiting for him with a spread of fruit, coffee and cereal in front of her. She pointed to a chair and he sat down to join her. That's a lovely way to start the day. Is that tie or something else? she asked Ty. I've been doing it for years. My grandfather taught me very ice forms when I was a kid. It helps with staying calm and being aware. He replied, it's amazing to watch. You looked completely focused. It's a bit like yoga. It's good for balance, flexibility and being present. It helps clear the mind. Did you sleep well? I know you had a tough time last night, he shrugged. It's the second night in a new place. Different sounds, different smells. It took a while, but I can't complain. No, this place is really nice. Hey, I brought you breakfast, thanks. Ethan poured himself some orange juice and grabbed some fruit and cereal. As he ate, he watched Betrayal, who looked nice in her outfit that matched her eyes. Her long brown hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Do I look okay? She asked, a playful smile on her face. Ethan chuckled. Was that obvious? It's fine. I noticed when you were moving around earlier. Sorry. There's not much to see. I'm not really the strong type. Not every woman wants someone who's all muscles. I prefer someone who is kind and thoughtful. If I thought you liked the strong type, I might have tried harder. She laughed. Don't get too full of yourself. But I'm happy with who I'm with this weekend. I think I'll have more fun with you than with Damien and Claude. I hope so too. We have 2 days to spend together. I'd like to know you better. What do you want to know? She asked playfully. Ethan paused for a moment. Honestly, I'd like to know who you really are. Just some things about you. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. My victim was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. You see how we connect? She gave a soft, serious laugh. Sometimes I'm not sure who I really am, but I like the idea of us spending time together and getting to know each other. You could tell me about your studies or what college life is like. I think that would be interesting. She looked at him, unsure of how to respond. Ethan nodded and continued eating. He noticed she was watching him closely. After a few minutes of quiet, he looked back at her. What I can't believe. How come you are about all this? You seem to be handling it well. I guess I'm just the calm type. Nobody's that calm. Maybe you realize that this weekend is just a moment in time. It's not something to mess up a marriage over. He shook his head. Nope. My marriage is done. Sure, I'll pick her up and drive her home. But I plan to get a divorce as soon as I can. Why are you so calm about it? That's years of your marriage gone. If I give you a real answer, what do I get in return? Ooh, making a deal. I know how you work. You tell me the truth and I'll do the same. Let's build some trust here. Fine. It's a deal. Okay. So why are you so calm? It's not what it looks like. I'm pretending to be calm inside. I'm hurting a lot. No way, you can't hide that. Well, I should be seeing something. You're shot. Betrayal. I am in pain. I just have a good poker face. But honestly, I saw this coming. A satisfied look appeared on Isabella's face. He turned his attention to his breakfast for a moment. A quiet silence hung between them. You need to say a bit more than that. He nodded, chewing his food, then spoke when he could. I know that. But your turn first. Your answer will help me remember. You promised honesty too. I remember. Go ahead. Mr. Pond. What's your connection to Jean-Claude? How do you know him? He leaned back, took a sip of his juice and watched her carefully as she thought about her response. Damien Claude hired me through an agency. I met him Friday morning, just a few hours before you and Laura arrived. I'm here for the weekend as his employee. That's all there is between us. Come on. That's too simple. Why are you really here? She paused, choosing her words carefully. I'm here because I was curious. An opportunity came up and I took it. I didn't know exactly what was happening this weekend. I just wanted to find out more. I thought it might be interesting. Is it interesting? Yes, but it's gone in a way I didn't expect. Now let on. Return to your response. All right, Ethan said, looking at her closely before he continued. Laura's behavior changed about 4 or 5 months ago. It wasn't anything major or specific, but I noticed her connection with me shifted a bit and her attitude toward her job changed too. I'm very observant. I pay attention to patterns and behaviors I have to. I live my life on guard. He took a sip of his orange juice and set the glass down on the table. She has really influenced my life. It may sound dramatic, but it's true. When I met her, I was in a tough spot. She inspired me and made me want to improve myself. He stood up and walked to the coffee table, pouring himself a cup. He offered her the pot, but she shook her head. Meeting her made me want to change. I've mentioned before that I'm not exactly the good guy. I never really aimed to be. I just wanted to get through life and did what I had to for that. But then I met her and I wanted to be the kind of person she believes I can be, not who I currently am. You've built a nice life with her, you said last night at the table. We have a really good life for our ages. We're doing well and I need about 3 to 6 more months to get everything just right. But I'm not there yet. I'm not the person she thinks I am or who I want to be. The kind of man who would be a caring father and a supportive partner. That's who I want to be, a good father, a good husband, a good person. 3 to 6 months. What do you still need to do? Sorry. Be trick, why crick? But that's not something I can share. He paused for a moment thinking about how to express the next part. I did a little research. I'm a very careful person. I learned a bit about our friend Damien Claude. Making things clear answers your question as much as I'm willing to. He leaned back in his chair, giving her a chance to reply. That wasn't what I thought I'd hear. What did you think you'd hear? You looked surprised last night too. Not that I'm not sure what I was expecting. I knew something was off, but I didn't know why. I understood you were involved, but the details weren't clear. They heard footsteps behind them as the people came onto the porch. Good morning. Hi Dwayne. Hiroon Beatrick responded with a smile. The couple walked over to the table. We won't interrupt you. To be honest, I'm not really sure what to say. We're here to keep an eye on you and make sure you're safe until they are back on Monday morning. That sounds good to me. I just want to relax for the next few days. Great. We're going to get breakfast, he said, waving, and with a friendly nod from his partner, they walked away. Did you know they're actually married? Ethan asked. Bella looked surprised. No, I didn't think. I don't know what I thought. Yep, they're just like Lance and Jenny. Neither Lance nor Dwayne are the lawyers they claim to be. They actually work for Damien Claude. Why would someone like that need help? I know, right? It's confusing. I was taking AAC when I got Friday morning and they introduced themselves as lawyers. How much do you know? Ethan chuckled. Now that's a good question. How much do we really know? Do you know what information asymmetry means? He noticed Beatrick shaking her head. It's just a fancy way of saying something simple. I know what I know. You know what you know. But we don't know what the other person knows or doesn't know. Each of us might have information that the other wants, which could change the situation. But we have no idea what that information is, or if we even have. It's a guessing game. I understand. Like he said, it's a simple idea, but it takes a lot to explain exactly. I had some real doubts about what was happening this weekend, so I wanted to know more. Damien Claude did too. How do you know that? He said a few things yesterday that showed he had some understanding of me. It gave me a glimpse into how he thinks. How he told me he looked into my background. Bella shrugged. So what? I'm not really catching on here. Why would someone want to know about me? I'm just the husband of a Poggle. Why are there people like that here? Why introduce them as lawyers? He noticed her deep in thought. She was sharp and listened closely. The more time he spent with her, the more he admired how she made connections. He hoped she wouldn't think about it for too long, as he worried about where her thoughts might lead. How about we play some chess? We can go for a walk later, some fresh air. But for now, let's play. Sunday evening came quickly. The last couple of days had been a mix for Ethan. He enjoyed getting to know Beatrick better. She was smart, quick-witted and fun. Despite her efforts, she hadn't won a game of chess yet, and he could tell that it frustrated her. She didn't like losing, and he respected that about her. He had grown close to her and valued her friendship. He sensed she was keeping something to herself, and there were topics he preferred not to touch. Damien Claude had hinted that Beatrix might be open to him because his wife was away. He chose not to ask about it or take advantage of the situation, unsure if Beatrix felt the same way. He didn't want to risk the friendship they had built. They spent time together walking, swimming, and playing chess. Their talk shared bits of their childhood, but they both chose to avoid certain topics to respect each other's feelings. Ethan finished the book he was reading and enjoyed a good night's sleep on Saturday. The house was lovely and Dwayne and Lance were polite, giving them space. The food was plentiful and tasty, making for a relaxing weekend one of the best he had in a while. He took some time to think about his plans and evaluate his situation. Life was busy and he had many responsibilities. This situation was a distraction he didn't really want or need, but he couldn't see how it could change, given how far it had already gone. Bella joined him for dinner on Sunday night. They shared a chicken and bacon salad with fresh bread, simple but well-made and tasty. "Hey, how are you?" he asked. "Hey, B. I'm good. Thanks. How about you?" She nodded. "How are you feeling about tomorrow morning?" He shrugged. "It's going to be hard. I don't know how they'll deal with their decisions after saying they wouldn't. That really affected me. I'm uncertain how they plan to fix her mistakes. To be honest, the sooner it's over the better. Are you sure she's been unfaithful?" "I can't say for sure if she has or hasn't, but it doesn't really matter. We live in a place where you don't need a reason for a divorce, and she can't show me that she's been completely honest. Her actions, leading with him when she knew the risks, make the question not important for me." "I guess so. It sounds like you believe she strayed." "Yeah, but it's the fact that she went with him when I said no that makes it less relevant." "I understand. Do you think she will challenge this?" "Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure why." "What makes you so sure about that?" "I think this weekend was planned ahead of time," he said as he took a bite of his meal. "Come on, Ethan. Don't make me pull it out of you." "What do you mean?" "I believe this weekend was meant to happen. Remember how I mentioned yesterday that I had some worries about it? Well, I really started to pay attention once I felt something was wrong." "Better late than never." "Right," Bella replied. "That's true. Sometimes things slip, even in good relationships." It hadn't slipped too far. "I'm not away often and I show my love and appreciation for her regularly. I'm a good partner. I treat her well. She has little to complain about. But you really tried harder." "I did. I increased my communication, took her out more and did thoughtful things, but it didn't seem to help. I asked her directly and she assured me many times that nothing was wrong and that she was happy. I did all I could right up to coming here. Yeah, I had a moment of clarity recently. I was worried about this retreat. I talked to her and made it clear that I wouldn't accept any disrespect, that our commitment comes first. Any breach of that would have serious consequences." "And how did she respond?" "Just wait a second." I was direct with her. Then I realized something. I wasn't just fighting for her. I was actually fighting against the idea of being betrayed. If she was going to stray, any issue would be hers, not Damien Claude's. He was the one showing interest. She could have set clear boundaries. She could have told me what was going on so we could work through it together. She chose not to. I've tried to be the best husband I can be. I've made it clear what could happen. But she made her choices. You don't think she believes you?" Bella asked, giving Ethan a moment to finish his meal and reflect. "I suspect, and this is just my guess, that she doesn't think it would end our marriage. She probably thinks I'll be upset but will eventually come around. She just has to get through some discomfort and it'll pass." Ethan shook his head. "Not exactly. I think there's another side to this." "What do you mean?" "You hinted at this before and I'm not sure I understand what's the other side. I think they're hoping I'll accept the situation, including our relationship shit with him. And then I wouldn't be surprised if he wants to have a child with Laura and I would agree to help raise the child with her. Bella leaned back in her chair, surprised. That's quite a jump. Honestly, this is not how I saw this weekend going, Ethan chuckled. It's hard to predict something like this. He mentioned on Friday that he needs someone to carry on his family name and isn't looking to marry. If I play along this weekend and accept, without pushing for a divorce, he might offer more for Laura to have a child with him, with the idea that we would co-parent. He watched Beatrix as she thought about the idea. He might suggest that if you confront him, you can stay together and gain the benefits. It's a smart plan. His is. I wonder how many times he's tried this before, or if we're the first couple he's approached. I wonder if he's the last one in his family. Ethan laughed. That's true. I checked thoroughly. He has no living relatives. His family usually has one heir, but no extended members. There aren't cousins or distant relatives. Like in most families, he's the last of his line. You can't be sure, Bella said, shaking her head. Trust me. You might think you're the better investigator between us, but you're mistaken. He smiled as he saw her skeptical expression. I spent a lot of money to find that information and I made sure it was correct. It was checked by someone else too. I believe it. He's a rich guy. If you're right, he could try this plan again and again until he finds the perfect couple to get what he wants. Even if that causes some trouble along the way. Ethan said quietly, it doesn't have to hurt the relationship. If he was ready to pay so much for just the weekend, think about how much he would pay for the right result. It could be worth it. Sure, some people might accept that kind of money. He might convince others that it's worth chasing. After big rewards, Laura might be expecting news. Be warned. I suspect this is her best chance. I've done some thinking. They probably want to make their goal happen quickly and finalize things. Maybe a few extra tries to be sure. Ethan nodded. I thought he would make a big offer on Friday. I was surprised when he only wanted it for the weekend. After thinking about it yesterday and today, I see what he really wanted. He's smarter than I first realized. He knew you would be busy. Exactly. He had 2 people here pretending to be other lawyers to make sure I wouldn't get in his way. And his plan, if I got upset, was to suggest I take a little break while they just leave and let me settle down. Smart, isn't? It's a clever plan. Well thought out. I wouldn't be surprised if he's done this before me. Neither. Why try only once? Doing it a few times lowers the chance of things going wrong. So how will you manage it? Manage? It's already happened. We both understand the situation well. If he's offering that much money, it must mean something significant. Some people might find it tempting. Not me. Why not be trick-pressed? When you think about it, what's the real loss here? Is it worth throwing away something good over it? I'm not so sure. Ethan sat quietly thinking about what she had said. She made a good point. Was he overreacting? Bella saw the doubt on his face. Is it really that bad? Just one awkward talk. Maybe 2. Is it worth hurting a good relationship? I really don't know. Ethan felt confused. What had seemed clear before was now unclear. That thought made him uncomfortable. He shrugged, deciding to take more time to think about it. He wasn't sure about the questions swirling in his mind. How much does a partner make? She asked without waiting for his reply. It's not a lot, this chance to improve your life. Will it come again? If it were me, it would be hard to pass up. I told her you did. It was clear. But maybe she believes you're a reasonable person who can change his mind. Maybe she thinks you can see things her way. She might trust that your marriage can survive this challenge even more than you trust. Her sounds like you think she might be right. Ethan said, studying her closely. I don't know. Bella replied, I'm not in your shoes. It's easy to judge from the outside. It's much harder when you're in it. Every time I think about it, I see another side. I think Ethan paused to gather his thoughts that there are a couple of problems. First, there's a lack of honesty. Second, this seems like more than just a one-time thing. It could point to deeper issues. I feel there's a serious break in trust. Bella nodded at his words. Lastly, and importantly, I feel hurt. This is my marriage. My future feels at risk. It weighs heavily on me. This whole situation. Working with him. It really affects me. Consider the possibilities. Beatrix said. Thoughtfully. Think about the opportunities. The kind of life that could be created. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of a better future. It can feel inviting. We all face challenges and tough times in life. He woke up early on Monday morning, just like the last 2 days. He started with a swim, then did his Tai Chi exercises, repeating the moves to help him feel steady. He felt a bit anxious about Laura coming back, so he wanted to stay calm and focused. He wasn't downstairs when he was ready for breakfast, so he ate alone, thinking while he slowly enjoyed his meal. Even though he took his time, she still hadn't come down. When he finished, he went back to his room to pack his clothes and toiletries. After checking carefully to make sure he hadn't left anything behind, he left with his suitcase. Hey Ethan, he heard, as he walked through the foyer toward the front door. He turned to see who was calling him. You're not leaving yet, Dwayne said as he came over. No. Dwayne, I'm not leaving. I'm just putting my suitcase in my car so I can avoid dealing with it later. Dwayne laughed softly. You leave when we say so. You need to be patient. Please move out of my way. I will leave when I want to. If I choose to go now, no one can stop me. You aren't going anywhere just yet, Dwayne said, crossing his arms. No. I'm just putting my things in my car. Please step aside or be ready for a disagreement. Dwayne looked at him, but Ethan stayed calm. I'll walk you to your car, Dwayne said. Ethan walked past him to his car. He used his key to open the trunk and placed his suitcase inside. After closing it, he locked the car while Dwayne reached for the key. No thanks, no thanks, no thanks, Ethan said. Walking back toward the house, he noticed Dwayne didn't look happy about how things were going. You need to learn some manners, Dwayne said. Following, Ethan stopped and turned to face him. Are you going to teach me those, Dwayne? I doubt your boss would like that. I'm open to talking about it later. Just let me know. Feeling brave now, Ethan? Dwayne said, a smile on his face as he noticed Ethan's challenge. I'm strong enough, Ethan replied. He took a moment to gather his thoughts and clear his head. Sitting in the morning sun by the pool, he focused on his coffee, taking slow sips to help calm himself. The tension from their earlier talk still hung in the air, and he knew he needed to find some quiet before moving on. As he waited, he thought about his past with Laura, remembering the special times they had together, their wedding day, and when they moved into their home. He was careful with his coffee, knowing that too much could increase his worry. So he switched to water to help calm him. Lance walked over and motioned to join him. Ethan nodded and put his phone away, ready to listen. They're coming back soon. I just got a call from them, Lance told him. Ethan stayed quiet, taking in the news. Ethan, I understand how tough this is. For you didn't choose this, and I know that. But we're here to make sure everything goes well. You get that I have to support Damien CLA. Ethan took a sip of his water, thinking about what Lance said. You've been with Jean-Claude for a while. You help him and others in many ways. Lance nodded, accepting Ethan's statement without saying more. The woman with you is actually your wife, not just someone here for fun. Ethan noticed the surprise on Lance's face as he continued. What else do you want me to tell you, Lance? The names of your kids, the name of your baby Sarah, or where your grandparents live in India. Why aren't you Marine anymore? Lance took a deep breath before answering. You need to hope, Lance, that we don't run into any issues today. If anything happens, it could come back to you. Ethan, there's no need for problems. But if you start something with Jean-Claude, I will respond strongly, and it won't be easy. Lance pushed back his chair and left the table. Ethan smiled a little to himself. Bella still was not here. He wondered if he should go find her. In the days she had been with him, she had watched him closely. He thought she would want to be with him to see how things turned out. He still wasn't sure he fully understood her. She seemed unpredictable. She wasn't in any of his research and she wasn't part of Damien Claude's life. He would have known if she was. He picked up his phone and went back to his work. About half an hour later he saw Lance and Dwayne step outside with their wives' drinks in hand. They sat at a different table but were close enough to hear any issues. Then he saw her come out onto the porch with Damien Claude. They looked around until they spotted him and walked over. "Hey," Laura said as she approached. She was dressed in casual clothes, comfortable and relaxed. She appeared calm. Ethan nodded at her. She took a seat across from him, with Damien Claude sitting between them. "Where's Betrayal?" Damien Claude asked. Ethan shrugged and turned to Laura. "I want to leave before you go. There are some things we need to talk about." Damien said gently. Ethan looked at him. "Have you taken care of everything with her?" he asked coolly. He saw confusion on Damien Claude's face. "My wife. Have you finished the arrangement?" "No, not yet." "Then do, it's important." "Ethan," his wife replied, sounding tired. "I'll take you home. Then you can pack your things and go." "Ethan, it was just one weekend in your life. It's not a big deal. A good weekend, actually. I know you're upset, but please focus that on me, not Laura," Damien Claude said, revealing a hint of frustration. "I'm not going to hurt you, Laura. That's not who I am. But I won't be around you anymore. We're finished." "Ethan, there are good reasons why that might not be wise. I really don't want you to regret this. Just give me 5 minutes and then decide with all the facts." "Ethan, please listen to him. It matters." Laura said, "Things have changed. I'll listen if you both agree that after 5 minutes we leave no more questions." "It's settled, and we go, deal," Damien Claude said, smiling confidently. "Complete the agreement." Ethan said, "I'll speak first. Time is ticking and I won't listen until you finish what you need to say." Jean Claude rolled his eyes. "My time doesn't start until everything is sorted. This doesn't count." "Then please stop talking and handle the transfer with a smile." Damien Claude walked into the house. "Ethan," Laura began as soon as Jean Claude was out of sight. "Please be quiet. I don't want to hear anything right now." His tone was stern and cold. She looked at him hurt. He turned away. Damien Claude returned to the porch. "The money has been transferred." She'd need her phone back to confirm it. Damien Claude glanced at Dwayne. "Please get her phone." Dwayne moved slowly, taking his time. The table was silent until he returned with her phone. Laura looked at Jean Claude. "Laura, if you're not following what I said right now, then I will leave you here, please." "Ethan, please be gentle. I know you're upset with us, but she's your wife." "Well, she used to be. If the money is there, move it to your savings account." "You really don't trust me at all, do you, Ethan?" Damien Claude asked. Ethan shook his head. "I can't trust you. Remember the last thing you said to me on Friday. It was the easiest choice." Damien Claude replied. Laura nodded and handed her phone to Ethan. He squinted at it and saw that the money had been moved to her savings account. "You have 5 minutes. Then we're gone for good." "Maybe not, Ethan. Maybe not," Damien Claude said with a satisfied smile. "I'm sorry for how we left things on Friday. I know you're angry with me and Laura, and I wish that wasn't the case. Our actions didn't help, and for that I'm truly sorry." Ethan looked away, lost in thought. "I hope you had a nice weekend. Dwayne and Lance said you were a great guest. They mentioned you spent a lot of time with Betrayal, but nothing went wrong. I'm sorry she was here to fill in for your wife. She would have been with you if that was what you wanted." Ethan took a sip of his water. Time was passing and this discussion felt empty to him. "I looked after your wife. She's back now and doing well. We had a good time. But nothing is different. She's still the same person. She loves you, not me. She wants her life with you." His tone was calm and friendly. Ethan could tell he was skilled at talking things through. Try to make the other person feel at ease. I know this is hard right now, but trust me, after a few days, when you see that nothing has really changed, you'll appreciate the choices she made. It might feel tough right now, but she's made a wise choice. She's done a good thing for both of you. Soon you'll see how helpful this will be. Ethan, your worries will pass. You'll look back and see this was just a small moment in the past. You'll find ways to use what we have to reach your goals. You'll be glad I picked you two for this. Damien Claude took a sip of water from his bottle. I chose you both because of your wife's wonderful qualities and, Ethan, I knew you could handle this situation. You're calm and level-headed, and I respect that. About you, time's almost up. Jean-Claude, I mean it. I'm leaving. Damien Claude raised his hands now. You owe me a bit more time for interrupting. Just hear me out. Ethan, you'll want to listen. He leaned in a little closer and spoke softly. I'm here to offer a new chance. I believe you and your wife would be great at raising a child. I want you both to think about helping me shape a bright future. Think of the benefits that come. With a good amount of support, you could work towards your dreams without worrying about day-to-day money issues. I understand you need a little time to think about everything that's happened. It's important to take a clear view of what I'm suggesting to help during this time. I plan to assist Laura with her work for a couple of weeks. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. She can focus on what's important for both of you during your recovery. The aim is to create a warm and supportive home for any child raised. It's okay if my offer feels tough at first. That's normal. You're a man and I've just marked you as mine. I understand. Spend some time with Laura. Share your feelings and think about what happened this weekend. Try to reconnect with her. Maybe even look for some support. Once you've processed everything, you'll see. This chance is good for both of you. Ethan glanced at his watch as the second hand ticked us up. Damien Claude stood and reached out a hand which Ethan ignored. Laura, I'm leaving. You can come with me now. We need to gather our things. Ethan shook his head. Everything is ready, and in the car he looked at Jean-Claude. I'll see you again, he said softly, then walked through the house and outside to his car. He moved steadily but didn't rush. As she got closer to her car, she spotted him. Her two friends noticed him too. They couldn't hear what she said, but they walked to their own car, sitting inside while they watched. She had reassured them, yet they still had their doubts. Wow, it's you. I wasn't sure I'd see you again, she said. Getting closer, he stood up. You never said goodbye. I thought you might join me for breakfast, but you didn't. I didn't want to say goodbye. There were things on my mind. It was a talk I wasn't ready for. Weren't you curious about what might happen? She chuckled softly. I thought you could go in different directions. I was curious, but I didn't want to get deeper into it. He nodded, understanding her view. How about we grab a coffee and chat? I'd like that. Does any sound good? She offered him a ride and he got into the passenger seat. He watched her wave to her friends as they drove away. Are they your friends? Just old work buddies. She drove them confidently to the nearest diner. They parked and walked inside. Ethan opened the door for her. Once they had their coffee, he started talking. So what should I call you? Ethan asked, smiling. My name's Jennifer. You can call me Jen or Jenny. She replied. That's a nice name. But I like the name Betrayal too. He joked. She smiled at that. When did you figure it out? She asked. He laughed. I guessed you were law enforcement right from the start. What made you think that? She inquired. You noticed that the businesses I worked with mostly dealt in cash. Someone who wasn't involved would have missed that. Plus your school story had some whole school story. She chuckled. I see it wasn't very convincing. Ethan nodded. You said you were studying business at State. It was easy to find out by the end of the first day. I could tell you were connected to law enforcement, and, not being completely honest, I made that up quickly. We needed to act fast because my story had some issues. I thought by the time anyone checked I would be away from the trouble. I left my phone behind because I thought you all needed to handle it. I acted quickly. I left my phone in the car and took a spare key with me. After things settled down on Friday night, I got my phone back and looked you up. There were some missing pieces. Jenny laughed. You never said anything. I couldn't really say much. I didn't know if you were on my side or not. I was in a complicated situation. I'm sorry. I couldn't do more. You probably helped more than you realize. Having you around made me stay strong and not give in. You brought a different set of challenges. I reminded myself to stay focused and not lose sight of what Laura had done. Damien Claude didn't know who you were, Jenny said, breaking the quiet after Ethan's last words. I know that surprised me the most. He didn't recognize me. I don't think he still does. We weren't certain. We noticed your name linked to a meeting at his place, and it raised questions about why you were meeting. So we decided to dig deeper. Did you go there to gather information? We knew he would have guests for the weekend, and with my agent looks I fit the role best. We ensured I would be the one to go. How did that happen? The others weren't able to help. There was a big event in town. Or at least that's what we told him. That's an interesting plan. Your team must have felt uncertain about it. They did. We both had clean records. We thought the chances of something going wrong were low. We were really surprised by how everything turned out. You were keeping an eye on me. I had no clue. Ethan said thoughtfully. No. We were simply collecting information. We knew you were involved in some questionable things, but didn't have all the details. Your name came up often enough to spark our interest, but you always seemed harmless. I've left that life behind. I've moved on completely. I heard. That's why I'm here. I was worried. After the weekend, Ethan said slowly, choosing his words with care. Why is that? Some of the things I mentioned, the fact that you were in law enforcement. Even after everything, we still couldn't fully understand you. We looked into it, but your story stayed under the radar. Ethan smiled. I hear you've changed jobs too. She laughed. Your information is good. I left last week. Today was my farewell party. I know. That's why I'm here. What do you want, Ethan? She teased lightly. I divorced Laura. She received her share and gained her freedom. I heard that I wasn't sure what choice you'd make. You seemed really torn. On Sunday night, Ethan nodded. I did a lot of thinking, trying to sort through what happened and how I felt about it. It was tough to figure out what was real and what was just feelings. You made a choice, she said, looking at him with curiosity. There was always going to be a choice. In the end, I flipped a coin to help decide. Really? A choice like that seems a little hasty. Maybe. But it gives you a clear answer. Then you think about it and see how it feels all right. I can understand that I couldn't accept her choice. It just felt wrong. Maybe it was just a feeling, but it didn't sit right with me. So I changed my mind about ending things, and suddenly it felt okay. And why is that? He shrugged. It just felt bad. I could give you reasons, but I could do that either way. Staying felt wrong, and that bothered me. After a brief pause, Ethan went on. I'm okay with my choice. Be sorry, Jennifer. I stand by it. I guess that's what matters, Jennifer replied. Ethan was watching her, trying to understand her feelings about his decision. The divorce went through with some fuss, but nothing too serious. I thought Jean-Claude would really fight for her, she said, cooling her coffee with a gentle blow. He did his part. I had good representation, and we made it a simple divorce. It was hard for him to make a real impact. He was more of a hassle than anything. He let Laura down again. How are you and Laura now? He took a deep breath. We're okay. We've talked a few times. I think she wishes things had turned out differently. She realizes she didn't know me as well as she thought. Jennifer took a sip of her drink, looking satisfied, before she spoke again. All right. Let me ask you again. Ethan, what do you want? I want you in my life. Clarice, darling. I admire your smarts and your sense of humor. You're capable. You wouldn't have graduated from Quantico if you weren't. We get along well and I'd like to have you by my side. She laughed, catching the attention of others in the restaurant. You need to be honest with me. As long as you are too. You aren't keeping anything from me, right? Nope. Unfinished. No tricks. What you see is what you get, just a jobless. Former escort. Former FBI agent. Former student. She smiled as she said this. Talking to one ex. I'm not sure how to describe you. Lord or Baron. I still don't know what you were. Just that he chuckled. I did well from it. But I'm done. Now my money is clear and well taken care of. She looked confused. Every dollar has been tracked and is now invested in ways that will help me in the future. I'm not very rich, but I'm okay. You did well. I was lucky. Meeting Laura changed my path. She made me think about my choices and I found a way out. It took some time, it does. I wanted to leave without any trouble or anyone after me. I've done that. It took a lot of careful planning, but I managed. If and this is a big if we were to be together, would I have anything to worry about? Jennifer asked, looking into his eyes. He shook his head. I've made mistakes in my past. What I was part of affected a lot of lives I've gained from that struggle. But I didn't cause any issues and I handled my situation well enough that you didn't find me. I think we'd be okay. He nodded, seeing that she seemed more relaxed. He smiled. As he added that said, I do need to leave town. I'm not in any trouble, but I want to move somewhere new to start over. That makes sense. I don't have any strong connections here either. He shrugged. I knew we were meeting tonight. You know how I am. I did my homework. You seem very confident. Mr. Pond. He smiled at her compliment. I've taken time to regroup since my marriage ended. I've managed my work so I can look for new chances. I'm working on being a better person. Plus I'm single, and I think I have a lot to offer. Jennifer laughed. All right. So what would the future look like if I agreed to be your partner? He leaned back with a playful smile. I had a feeling you were interested. Hey, I was curious before. I liked how you spoke kindly about your past. Not always. I was a bit harsh when she came back. Maybe. But there was respect in how you talked about her to me. I liked that. It was nice. Especially on that last day. Last day you weren't there. I got there after you both left. Damien Claude really talked to those guards. Lance and Dwayne, exactly good memory. He really gave them a piece of his mind. It felt like he sensed something was off about you. Did he say anything to you? She took a sip of her coffee. Enjoying its warmth, not much. He was surprised you didn't take the chance you had. Honestly, Ethan, you made a good impression on him. He liked how you handled yourself. He reached out a few times trying to convince me to give Laura another chance. And then he offered me a position in his organization. Jennifer nodded. You stayed calm and focused. You stood your ground. I'm not surprised. He was impressed. I was too. Ethan looked down at his hands before meeting her gaze. I do wonder what would have happened if I had chosen to explore the opportunity. We will never really know. Well, Jennifer said with a slight smile. Ethan smiled back. She looked just as lovely as he remembered. Let on. Talk about us. You asked how I view our future. You're right. I'm curious. I'm currently out of work, but I have skills. I have my own sense of right and wrong, even though I'm not with the Bureau anymore. I won't break the law and I won't let you either. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what comes next for us. Laura is no longer part of my life. My future doesn't include her. Dreams for us are no longer possible. She has her wealth and made her own choices. I don't want to engage with her. She belongs in my past. If I see her again, I'll be polite, but we won't be friends. Good. She made her decisions. It's time for both of you to move on. Exactly. But Jean-Claude, that's another story. I want him to understand the results of his actions. He acts like he can do anything without facing consequences. I want him to see the effects of his choices and maybe think twice. Okay. Jennifer said slowly. He's the top partner in a law firm that his family has owned for many years. He has a fancy house in France, a vacation spot in America, a ski lodge in B, and a large yacht in Bermuda, along with several properties in the United States. He has control over a trust worth over $2 million due. He has bodyguards, a great reputation, and he's very well connected. He's quite a tough opponent. Yeah, like a character from a story. But sometimes even the most unlikely people can find ways to challenge someone powerful. I'm determined to break down his power piece by piece and confront him directly. When he finally faces challenges, he will know who stood up to him, where you could find support. Try out new hobbies. Writing can be quite helpful. Maybe meet someone new with whom you can share your future. Just a thought, he said. Ethan laughed softly and leaned back in his chair. I'm not just looking for anyone. I want someone who will support me. Someone I can rely on. I have my share of difficulties and I want to explore the world while taking my time to deal with them. I believe patience is important, and I see you being part of this. He noticed her thinking it over, sensing her interest. You don't plan to hurt him? She asked. No, I want him to see there are effects to his actions. He needs to understand that. Despite his position, I put in the effort to hold him responsible. It's about making things fair. What resources do you have for this? Jennifer inquired, skipping over the last comment. I have between 10 and 20 million, mostly set aside to create income for us. I don't have a permanent home or any goals other than to shake up his life. What about Dwayne and Lance? I heard something happened with them. There was a miscommunication. They're both out of the picture for now. Dwayne was involved in a mix-up recently. Things got a little out of hand one night in a parking lot near a bar, and he lost to someone smaller. Did the police get involved? Ethan shook his head. It was a fair fight. He had his chance but couldn't handle it. He lost fairly, but he has left Jean-Claude, and so is Lance. You had a disagreement with him too? She asked. Nope. He just felt it was time for a change, so he chose to go. He came to talk. We made amends and now he's working for a reliable contact of mine. Jennifer nodded. If I wanted to get involved, what would be our first step? I think our first priority would be getting to know each other better and maybe doing a little research. Okay. That sounds good. I like research. It's like studying. You get to learn new things. I need to leave town. Not right away, but sooner rather than later. I was considering spending 6 months in Beats. If that sounds good to you. 6 months, you're not rushing things. Plans need time to develop, and I've heard Beat is a beautiful spot. Ethan shrugged. Getting familiar with each other will require patience. We have lots of time to work on our dreams. So why hurry? Let's take it slow and enjoy the experience. I like how you think Mr. Pond ready to go. And so they did. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.